All right, everybody, this is Pun. I've got a video for you today. This is one that's a little interesting because OBSBOT reached out to me. Now, as you know, here at church, we've really relied on the OBSBOT Tail 2s for our main cameras for all of our live services. They've been a valuable tool for bringing the gospel to people outside of our church, on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, and on our website. Tail 2's been a great camera. I really have found that it's great for the volunteers that we have, and it works really well in a variety of settings, and we can use it just like I am now, where I'm recording with it over here as a side shot for this video. But it was interesting. OBSBOT reached out to me here within the last week and said, hey, we'd like you to do a video on one of our main competitors and do a comparison of it with the OBSBOT Tail 2. So what I have here today is the BIRDDOG X1. Now this is a 1080p PTZ camera. A lot of the same functionality that the Tail 2 has, but there are some things that are different between the two cameras. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And what I did was I recorded some of our services today, and I did a comparison video footage of our live service using both cameras in various modes, in manual mode, in auto focus, and auto white balance, manual adjustments, and AI tracking, which I think a lot of people are going to be interested in. And I think you're going to be really interested in seeing the results because they are pretty different. So what we'll do now is we'll go and I'm going to show you how I have the camera set up for our normal workflow here at Crosspoint. And then I will then show some of the comparisons and I'll talk through those. And then at the end of this video, I'll kind of give you my thoughts on what I think is best for churches in general and what you really need to think about when you're looking at buying either the OBSBOT Tail 2 or the BIRDDOG X1. All right, so our normal workflow is we use these wall mounts. This is where our cameras are normally set up at. And so I'm going to hook the BIRDDOG up. Now, the BIRDDOG does have 1/4 threads here on the bottom, so you can mount it to any standard, mount that has 1/4 threads, which pretty much everything does. And you just simply screw it on, and it's ready to go. Now, one of the things that we have here at Crosspoint, which a lot of churches probably do, is a PoE Ethernet switch. This does support PoE power, and you just simply plug it in, if I can find the hole, and you get power to the camera. Now the BIRDDOG does run through a test sequence of adjusting and getting its bearings, and then once it's ready, you should get a blue light here that'll go solid once it's ready. So here in our studio, I have the Tail 2 and the BIRDDOG X1 both set up, running through our network, both feeding NDI at their relative resolutions and frame rate. This is one of the key differences that you'll need to know about the X1 versus the Tail 2 is that the maximum resolution on the X1 is 1080p, up to 60 FPS. Whereas on the Tail 2, you can do up to 4K 60 over NDI, which is really nice. And that's one of the key differences. I think, a lot of people that are looking for content creation and things like that, where you need those higher resolutions and frame rates, or if you want to have options when you're doing post-production and you can crop in without losing fidelity on your video, the Tail 2 is going to give you that option, whereas the BIRDDOG will not. So I wanted to kind of compare the size of the cameras. As you can see, the big difference is the BIRDDOG is just a lot bigger. The optical zoom, capabilities it has just requires a bigger frame. So you're just seeing a big difference between the two cameras. And the OBSBOT obviously has a bigger base. Now, the funny thing is now the Tail 2 has a built-in battery that'll give you about, I would say about 4 hours of battery time at 4K. And, and it's really nice. It gives you that ability. It also has the ability of onboard recording with an SD card. Now the inputs on the back of the Tail 2 and the BIRDDOG, a lot of the same functionality. You do have PoE Ethernet, 1 gig Ethernet. Both cameras support Wi-Fi. Now, the difference between the BIRDDOG and the Tail 2 is the Wi-Fi antenna is built into the body of the Tail 2, whereas you have an antenna ability right here to plug in with the BIRDDOG X1. Again, Ethernet supports PoE power. You do have an HDMI input. You have a USB-C for both of these. Now, this has one USB-C on BIRDDOG, whereas the Tail 2 has two, one for power and one for control and data, in case you want to use it like a USB webcam. This USB on the BIRDDOG would be strictly for plugging up for using as a webcam if you wanted to do that. This requires power on the BIRDDOG. It does not have battery, so you need to either have it connected through PoE, or it comes with a 12-volt DC adapter that you would plug into a wall. Again, the Tail 2 has a battery that gives you up to 4 hours, or you could plug it in through USB and then have a brick that you would plug into the wall to give it external power, or it would also power off of your PC, or a battery pack, which is something that we do with our OBSBOT cameras. If they are on a battery and we're going to be using for extended time, we will use one of these battery packs here that we can also plug in for external power. This is really for our tail air mainly, but just that is an option for you if you want to use those. This does also, now the one thing that I was kind of surprised with the BIRDDOG X1 is it does not have SDI 3G, whereas opposed to the Tail Air does have 3G SDI. So if you do have a video switcher that has SDI, you can also use this. This also has Pelco controls where you can use this for various switches that you would plug in using a 3.5 millimeter jack. And this has RS-232 where you can use this to plug to a switch. So there are options for both of these cameras. Another key difference between the two is their zoom. Now the Tail 2 uses a 5x optical with a hybrid zoom that gives you up to 12x hybrid. So it's a 2.5x hybrid or digital zoom that gives you a hybrid zoom up to 12x. The BIRDDOG gives you a 20x optical zoom, and that is one of the benefits of the BIRDDOG compared to Tail 2. The image quality at 1080p is better on the BIRDDOG. This is some footage that I shared during church that I have, or I recorded both, and you could just see, in my opinion, the image just looks cleaner, it looks more camera quality, and there's less noise in the video. And what I did was I tried to match the settings the best I could between shutter speed, white balance, ISO, gain, all that stuff. So they should be matched together, but you can see that the Tail 2 does have a little bit more noise in it, especially when you look at the backlighting. You can really see it. Optical quality for the BIRDDOG is better. But that's kind of where things fall off. Let's just say that, because Tail 2, in terms of use and ease of use, is well and beyond anything that the BIRDDOG has. Now, the BIRDDOG UI, you can see here, is robust. It gives you lots of options, but I just found it to be rather clunky. Now, if you're looking for adjustability, I think that the BIRDDOG UI, the web interface, does give you more options, including one of the things that I really wish they would give you on the Tail 2's web UI is advanced color control, where you can go and you can change the different hues. You do not really have this option on the Tail 2. So color balancing between multiple cameras, especially if you have a camera, or multiple cameras that are different manufacturers, it really makes it hard to balance them. The big strength for the Tail Air, though, when it comes to its web interface, is just its ease of use. While the web interface is robust for the Tail 2 and the BIRDDOG, I just think the Tail 2 is just a little easier to understand, and it does give you just easy use for your volunteers, especially when it comes to the AI mode. In my opinion, the OBSBOT Tail 2's AI is just tuned to where it gives you an exponentially better video. The tracking is smoother. The auto zoom, auto tilt functionality is better. You'll find with the BIRDDOG that it jerks a lot, it loses track, it's just not what you would want for AI. Now, I think that if you're a church that you have a video controller, a camera controller where you're using a joystick, you may be okay, or if you just use it in manual, that's fine. But even on the web interface, I found that, PTZ controls for the BIRDDOG, even when you try to lower the sensitivity down, it's just a little too sensitive. I ended up finding it was better just to use the NDI Studio monitor and using the PTZ controls in it as opposed to using the web interface. With Tail 2, no, it's not the case at all. The controls for the PTZ are really nice. You can tune them and they respond in kind, and you can make adjustments. But that's what's great about the Tail 2 is that, generally speaking, in our setup, once you go into tracking mode on our pastor, it's set and forget. You don't have to do anything because it will literally lock in on him. And despite any obstacles that are in the way, we have no issues. Again, here's some footage that I have where I have these side by side in comparisons, and you can just see the difference in the AI tracking between the two cameras. And I obviously prefer the Tail 2s.
11, that this time around when I was looking at I am the good shepherd, this verse kind of stood out to me in Isaiah 40 verse 11. I want you to see it on the screen. He will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom, and he gently will lead those that are with young. Wow, what a beautiful picture of the shepherd. I think there's three wonderful pictures here of the good shepherd. First of all, we see a great provision, a great provision. We see the shepherd leading the sheep. What does it say? He will tend his flock like a shepherd. So if you go back and throughout the Middle East, the shepherds live with their sheep. They're never separated. And so the flock follows the leader, and each day is led to places where the
Tail 2, when it comes out now, BIRDDOG, I think they could probably, tune their AI so that their tracking is smoother with a firmware update. But as of right now, I just don't see how the X1 would compare in AI tracking mode, even though it does have it. Now, there is some things that you can do to kind of work it. You can manually adjust the tracking box inside of the web UI. You also have different modes such as upper body, lower, close, that sort of thing, or full body. But I found going into custom mode and then adjusting this where you can tune the control itself works out a little bit better than using any of the preset modes. That way you can really fine tune it. But even doing that, I found that it just did not match the Tail 2's capability when it comes to AI tracking. And that's why I like the OBSBOT Tail 2 so much. For our volunteers, once they set AI tracking for our pastor, it's pretty much hands off other than just monitoring and making sure that, something crazy doesn't happen. And it typically doesn't. So I just have to give the +1 to the OBSBOT Tail 2 for that. Color-wise, obviously I think the X1 with its advanced color controls would get the nod because you, again, can better color match it to your, other cameras that you have. But generally speaking, I think that they were both in auto mode with auto shutter, auto exposure. The only thing I really needed to adjust was the white balance on the X1 to get it to match up to the Tail 2. And I could get them really close. The Tail 2, obviously, I think it does a pretty good job. I think it's a little bit biased toward magenta, where I think it shows a little too much. And I know a lot of users have complained about not having tint control where you can do red, blue, and green tint control or offset inside of the software. Something I would definitely love to see with OBSBOT software. But other than that, the cameras are both very capable. And I think, like, again, if you're a church that has a camera controller, such as the AV cans, where you can you have a joystick where you can find control the camera and you can adjust that, or you can set presets for the camera, then I think you'll be fine with the X1. But if you're really looking for automation, I really don't think the X1 is there yet. But again, you know, that is just something that you're going to have to decide. Now, both of these cameras are both around the $1,200 mark here in the United States. So, you know, that's something that you need to think about when you're buying these cameras. What are you looking for in a camera? Are you looking for better image and optical zoom? Obviously, the X1 is going to be your candidate. Or are you looking for resolution, automation, and easeability? Then I think you might give the nod to the Tail 2. Both cameras work pretty good, and I think that they both have their pluses and minuses. But in my opinion, for our personal workflow right now, the fact that we have to depend on the web UI for controlling the cameras, I just think that right now the Tail 2 overall is a better option for us. But I would love to have that 20x optical zoom that the X1 gives, because I will say the image quality, you could tell a big difference when you're zoomed in as compared to the Tail 2 with its 12x. It just gives you a nicer, crisper, cleaner image that looks more like a camera instead of a webcam. But I also want to mention the remotes, and this is something else too. So they do come with remotes. Both have remotes here. Obviously the OBSBOT, and this is another thing, I really rely on this remote a lot too, to control both of our Tail 2s, and this works fantastic. This is the BIRDDOG remote, a little bit more traditional. You just have push buttons for the PTZ controls, as opposed to the, not only does the Tail 2 remote have a joystick, but it's also, if you hold the joystick down and you move, you can see on the camera, it's got a gimbal inside of the remote where I can move the remote up and down and control the camera. Or I could just let go of the joystick and then use the joystick and control the camera that way. Here you got one option, you got the buttons, and I'm gonna be honest with you, they're very sensitive. Another thing I found out, we're in a broadcast room. We have to have the door closed during the service. This remote will not work for the BIRDDOG unless you are in a direct line of sight without obstructions. This is working on the Tail 2 that's currently plugged up, that's at least 50 feet away from us right now. And with the door closed, there is no degradation in performance. It works with the door closed, it works with the door open, it works. I'll be honest with you, I imagine it would probably work outside of the building, provided I don't get too far away. So that's another thing you need to think about too. Are you in a broadcast room environment where this remote would not work and you would have to rely on the web interface to control the camera fully? That's something you also need to think about. Now, like I said, if you're in the same room and you have direct line of sight to the camera, then you're okay. But I do have to give the nod to the Tail 2 remote over the BIRDDOG remote for control. All right, anyway, thank you for watching this video. I hope it helped you out. Again, thank you, Charlie, for being my camera guy today. If you have any questions about the workflows that I'm using, please drop a comment down below. Now, what I would like to see is I would like to do a comparison of the X4 Ultra from BIRDDOG, which gives, in terms of capabilities, is more in line with the Tail 2, but the big difference is the price, because you're talking a little over $2,000 camera as opposed to the $1,200 OBSBOT. So I think that would give the Tail 2 a nod in terms of affordability, but I would like to see how they compare performance-wise. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, thank you for taking the time to watch. If you have any questions, drop a comment down below. I will answer them as soon as I could get to them. Again, no knock on the BIRDDOG X1. I think it's a fine camera, but in my opinion, the Tail 2 overall just gives you better ease of use, and overall just works better for the workflow here at our church here in Suffolk. Once again, if you've got any questions, I'll try my best to answer them for you. And Other than that, I hope everybody has a great week. We'll see you later.